Hello, and welcome to Saving People Queering Things, the podcast where we talk about ghosts, road trips, and free will through every episode of the retro TV series Supernatural.
Today, we are exploring Season 3, Episode 13, Ghostfacers, through the theme of duty. I'm Abigail, and my question for my host this week is, if you were going to create a low-budget niche TV series, what would it be about, and how would you pitch it to a network?
So I have a really fun, goofy, anecdotal, very related story for this. So I actually in college was in a ghost hunting club, like legitimately was in a club where we went on paranormal investigations.
Love that.
And I went to Temple University, and so it was called Tea Lights.
About you.
Okay, then you get this experience. It was called Tea Lights because it was like, tea light candles, and we were Temple University, and so Ghostfacers. Before I saw the episode, I was literally making a similar show with my friends. And I was like the editor, and I was using the like night vision sort of like goofy tactics and shit. So I would just do that because we had a lot of fun, and we got some weird stuff that we were not able to explain. We did a really fun daytime investigation at Eastern State Penitentiary because we couldn't get in at night because you have to pay like hundreds of dollars to be there at night, but it's like $10 during the day. And we got like weird EMF spikes that we couldn't explain. And we did a one overnight investigation at Laurel Hill Cemetery, which is like a very famous cemetery in Philly. And it was really fun. So
wild.
I would have pursued my Ghostfacers.
You literally would have just made Ghostfacers.
Yeah, I literally would have just made Ghostfacers. I'm so glad that was your question and that I had an opportunity to finally tell this podcast about my ghost hunting days.
Do you have any of that footage?
God, I wish I did. There's a very small chance it might be on a college hard drive because I think I still have one hard drive with stuff from college, but doubtful.
Bonus content.
Yeah, I will look because I actually know hunting. Right where.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure that hard drive is like within 10 feet of where I'm sitting right now. So I will look for that afterwards and may share that ridiculous content. Although I'm not in it much because I was Spruce. I was the camera person. Because I was the resident film kid.
But what's your name now? Because I'm pretty sure you didn't say that at the beginning.
Oh, I'm Elayna. Hi, it's nice to meet everyone. I'm new here. No, just kidding.
No.
Y'all know who I am.
Unless this is your first episode, in which case.
Yes, hello, I'm Elayna, and my pronouns are she and or they and or whatever I feel like that day. Who are you guys?
Well, hey, I'm Noah, he, him. And if I had to make a low-budget niche TV series, a while back, some studio executive reached out to my mother, and because she was big on the internet at the time, had a really popular blog for a long time. And some TV executives reached out and said, hey, we want to make a reality show around your family because we have a pretty sizable family and we homeschool and conservative Christian. Like it was their ideal setup. And she was like, okay, well, like give us your pitch, like we'll hear you out at least. And they said, okay, so we have everybody related to you. You guys all move into one big house. And she was like, I'm sorry. And then the whole other side, and they were like, yeah, just all move into the big house. And mom said, no, that's fine. We'll pass. So could have had a TV show, but I wouldn't have enjoyed making that one. So I wouldn't go that route. I'd go with a much more entertaining sci-fi family one. It'd be great.
That's amazing. I have heard that story multiple times, Noah, from multiple members of your family. And every time I hear it, I just thoroughly enjoy that story.
I'm
terrifying.
Absolutely flabbergasted that like I'm speaking to someone who could have been one of the creepy Duggars.
Yeah, straight up. We could have been like that sort of vibe.
Because it's so funny because you've told me so much about your family before, but I feel like this fact makes me understand light years more.
You could go back to my mom's blog and find decades of my life.
Are you serious? That's so.
Oh my God.
That's so interesting. Oh my gosh.
I think I already introduced myself, but I'm Abigail. My pronouns are they, them. I would probably have to go with some super campy sci-fi, like planet hopping, some sort of like bunch of weird crew members are like planet hopping in some
Star
very...
Trek.
You
can just say Star Trek. A dope Star Trek show.
I'd like to report shots fired on the podcast.
You'd make a phenomenal Star Trek show.
Just extra campy and low budget.
Oh yeah.
Even if it's made, not made in the 60s, but like 2005 low budget. So,
Okay,
like
can
everything's
we-
sort of there, but also like don't look too close.
If this whole
Yeah.
podcasting thing doesn't work out for us, can we all create that show together? Because I'm down.
That's
Yes.
gonna be our big
I'll bring my
Kickstarter.
camera. It'll be great.
We'll
Fantastic.
go hopefully more viral than the Ghostfacers and not lose all our footage to some
Yeah.
pesky monster hunters.
If it weren't for those meddling Winchesters.
Arr.
That's a great segue. It's time for the 30-second recap.
Yeah, the 30-second recap is basically just a chance where we get everyone caught up on what we've seen on the road so far. Today, we've got Elayna doing our season recap.
Shuffles my single note card. I am
Ah.
prepared.
You have notes. That's actually more prepared than we usually are.
Yeah, I've never done a notes version before, but I did a really bad season recap recently, and I feel the need to redeem myself.
You know that just means that now there's more pressure on this one because you've
Oh, yeah.
prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Hope you know
yeah.
the stakes here,
I
Elayna.
got this.
You've got this.
I'm ready.
Not to intimidate, not to like. Okay,
Listen.
Yeah, intimidate.
I used to hunt ghosts. I can do anything. Okay,
I'm gonna roll for intimidation.
So just let me know when you're ready, and I'll count you in.
let's do this. Count me in, Noah. I'm prepared.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so they set a bunch of demons loose, and then Dean sees his ex and is really sad about it and angsty. And then they have a really bad day in a place called Black Rock. And then they save a city that's being run by a demon priest. And then there's a kid with fairy tales. And then Dean and Bella have a weird sexual tension over a ghost boat. And then there's some witches and some dream weed. And then Mystery Spot is really depressing and angsty. And Sam spends 6 months by himself. And then they have Justin Bello and they lose really bad on a case that they thought they won. And it was depressing. And now here we are.
Hey. look at
Hell
that.
yeah.
You got everything.
They have
in
a
there.
really bad day in a place called Black Rock.
The way you described Red Sky at Morning made it sound way better than that episode actually is.
They have weird sexual tension over a ghost ship.
Also, it seems like the ship was causing the weird sexual tension.
Exactly. I didn't mean for
I
it.
mean,
Yeah, literally the note that I had written was Dean and Bella have sexual tension. And then as I was saying it out loud, I was like, oh, I should mention the actual plot of that episode.
Oh,
whoops. No, it worked.
my
It
God.
worked perfectly.
I was like, I'm just going to write one stupid line for every episode. So that way I can't miss anything. And it worked.
Hell
So
yeah.
now it's time for our episode recap. Abigail, are you ready to bring us home to
uh-huh.
the Ghostfacers?
We face the ghosts when the others not. Okay.
Yeah, you have to finish it. You do. Like I was sitting here and I was like, Abigail's going to finish it. I know they are.
Okay.
If you're ready,
I think I am ready.
okay. I'm going to count you in. 3, 2, 1, go.
So we are going deep into 2007 television, specifically the kind that you would find on like YouTube channels. In this episode, the Ghostfacers, Ed and Harry and their little crew are hunting ghosts in the most haunted house in America. Sam and Dean show up. There is these spirits that are like causing havoc. There's a gay kid that really has a crush and then it's very, very sad. He dies. Then Gaylove has to pierce through the veil of death and save the day. And Sam and Dean wipe all the footage. So no hit TV show.
We were robbed, truly.
Honestly.
That was beautiful.
Well, I mean, sounds like you created a version of the ghost, though it may also be lost.
Ooh.
Yeah. I literally, it's taking all of my willpower right now to not just like throw my headphones off and go find that hard drive and see if I have anything.
If you find something, I will be so happy.
Yeah.
Honestly.
In lieu of that, today, it is now time for us to talk about the episode through our chosen theme. This week, our theme is duty. Every time I say that,
Every
Noah-
time you-
every time. I had to say it like 5 times today, prepping for this episode, and every single time.
every time Noah left
Every time.
I'm sorry.
because Noah is a mature individual.
I was doing great, but it's just really it's
It's a goofy word.
Yep.
I'm holding it in, trying not to giggle myself. So I feel you. But it's a really good theme for this.
it fits so well because it's a little goofy. It's a little funny, but
Yeah.
it's also serious.
Yeah, I was thinking through this whole episode about how a lot of what characters do is like the very opposite of duty or the motivation. Because like duty is like a motivation, you know, it's a reason why you do something. Like you do something because it's your duty, because you're supposed to, because it's your responsibility. Like that's kind of the synonyms for duty that I think of. And like that's not why any of the characters are here. Like I don't think there's a single character in this episode that is there because they think of this as their duty. Sam and Dean are there because Dean was like, I want to go to this place that's the most haunted house in America.
The way that he says, this is our Grand Canyon, I was like, Dean, you
So
absolute dork.
Yeah, but I mean, he was kind of right.
Yeah.
Cool. It was pretty intense.
Yeah.
Place is pretty haunted.
Yeah, I just think it's really interesting because like Ed and Harry and their team are there out of like curiosity and a desire for fame and a desire for creating a story that will be watched by the world. You may be the only person who's there out of duty is Sam, actually.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a really good
He
argument.
makes them stay.
Yeah.
Well, and not for nothing, I feel like Corbett feels like he has a duty to Ed, and that's really the beating heart of this episode.
Yeah. Can duty come out of love, I guess is the question of this episode.
I think it totally can.
Because that's the thread I'm going on with what you just said about Corbett.
Yeah, I think that because he cares so much about Ed, he feels like he has this duty and this obligation to be the best goddamn intern that he can be. And, you know, we see that like throughout the episode, but I think the nicest moment is actually the bit that they do at the end where Spruce is like interviewing him and he's like, come on, we got to get everything in the van. Like, you know, we got to do this. Like, you can tell there's this earnestness towards fulfilling his duties as an intern. And I think it's really wholesome. And yeah, like I think that it comes out of how much he cares about Ed and wanting to make Ed proud.
Yeah, absolutely. It's portrayed so beautifully.
And I love this little hackneyed team.
It's so nice, honestly, with like the combination of Dean and Sam being so like serious and about it, and they're trying to get the best shot.
Yeah. And I can relate.
The priorities are so different. You know, they're trying to tell a story, which I think makes this episode so cool because it's so much of it is filmed in such a different way than any Supernatural episode we've seen up to this point. Like it's filmed like a crappy TV show, like found footage crappy TV show.
Yeah.
And it's giving us this different way of looking at the story. It's a very like meta episode.
That is actually
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think that this is really Supernatural's first like super successful foray into something that is just pure fucking meta. We talked recently about how like there's certain episodes that are like, you know, either from Sam's perspective or from Dean's perspective. And the thing that I think is so interesting about this episode is it's from neither of them. Like we realize in this episode what unreliable fucking narrators Sam and Dean both are, and like the fact that they swear and everything is like
that was beautiful.
It's not just how they're unreliable narrators, but how the show itself is an unreliable narrator.
Yes.
Like it's pulling the camera back and because the narrator in this episode is the small cam that's on what's his face is holding.
Yeah, it's like Corbett and Spruce.
Yeah, Spruce
are really like the cinematographers.
Yeah, but they're not the narrators. They're just the cinematographers. The camera's the narrator.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's as unbiased as we've gotten so far.
Yeah. And yeah, like I think one thing that I think is really cool with this episode, and we can't talk about it fully because there's some spoilers in that for Noah, but there's a concept called the Ghostfacers effect. And boiled down, it's the idea that like the show is an unreliable narrator and what we see on the show is edited. The story is told a certain way to us and also about Sam and Dean. And the way it shows up in this particular episode is the swearing is the big piece of Sam and Dean their language has been edited to look a certain way. And, you know, they don't come across the same way that they come across in other episodes. We actually truly see them from an outsider's perspective. The only other episode I can think of a little bit that does a little bit of that is Roadkill. Roadkill does a little bit of the perspective outside of Sam and Dean's, but it's limited.
This is really the first time we get that major separation of the perspective that the show is being told from. I don't know why, but that made me think of like whose duty is it to convey the story? I don't really have an answer for that, but just an interesting question to
You
posit.
don't have an answer for that at the very end? Like, it's not revealed that it's someone telling?
We are not going to speak to details that you don't know
Yeah.
yet, Noah.
Okay.
But we would be interested in your theories on that, because
Yeah,
this
if you
is
have
like,
a theory, please present it now, because I am so excited
we
and will probably
we did it on record.
vehemently text Abigail afterwards to discuss said theory, but it's fine.
Yeah, because I don't know what all you actually know about.
I mean, not much about the end. I mean, except for November. Got that part down. But
Yeah. It was hard to be on the internet and miss
Yeah.
that.
yeah, but
and you
I don't
didn't know
know.
at that point you were going to be doing a supernatural podcast, so you weren't avoiding spoilers.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I know who dies in the very but I'm not. But
Nobody dies. Everybody lives.
I
Hashtag 1520 didn't happen. It's
don't
fine.
know if it's like revealed that whoever is talking to their grandkids and giving some kind of spiel, like, I don't know. They could go anywhere with this shit. Like, I know they jumped the shark a few times. And so maybe the shark jumps back at the end.
Maybe the shark jumps back. I would like that on a t-shirt.
If only you knew how layered your theory you just presented was. Oh, you'll find out in season 5, sweetie.
I think that's really interesting. I think it's really interesting in this episode how we get to see ghost hunters that, like, this is a little bit of a turn, but like ghost hunters that are doing it for totally different reasons and are also doing it in a totally different way. Like the collaboration of this team, like, yeah, they're terrible at the actual ghost hunting, but they're like,
Their tech is my favorite thing.
Yeah. They've got some tools and some tactics that they've learned that do help Sam and Dean at different parts. So, like, they're not better, but they have missing pieces of the puzzle that Sam and Dean need.
yeah.
Yeah, the EMF readers that we used in the club that I was in were somewhere of a halfway between Dean's Walkman and the really super fancy one that they have. Like, we actually did have like legit EMF readers, but they were like these small little they looked like remote controls, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Love it.
I love that they have a team too, like that they all have different roles of like who's doing what, and they have the little team huddle at the beginning where they're like, okay, you're gonna go here and you're gonna go here, and this is what's gonna happen. Like, more organized than Sam and Dean are 2 people. I get it.
Yeah.
But they communicate way worse about their plans than the Ghostfacers do.
Yeah.
They're like, here's a plan. And then they both are like, immediately go and do something different.
Yeah. They're just like, remember that plan that we had? Just kidding.
Psych. I'm gonna throw it out the window. Just start again.
Ooh. On the meta note, the line that Dean says to Bruce, where he says, does looking at this nightmare through your little camera make you feel better or something, is the most fucking meta line about Supernatural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it might, like, period. That's the sentence.
But then puts the camera down and then it's like, oh, okay. Wait, actually, yeah, it does. And puts it right back up.
Yeah.
It's the best reaction.
The acknowledge, like, I think Spruce is unnecessary as a character in this episode. I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion. The only lines he has are racist and gross. Like, most of his lines are terrible, and the only funny interaction that I noticed, and I've seen this episode a lot of times, is that one that he has with Dean. And it's mostly because Dean is pointing out that, like, the camera makes him more comfortable.
Yeah.
I think, I wish that we had either gotten more personality from Spruce in a positive way, or that they had found a way to, like, film that didn't need him, because he's kind of an unnecessary character, I think.
Yeah.
Feel free to argue with me on there, but I've felt that every time I see this episode.
I feel like they did want to have somebody that, like, is filming it that you don't care about as much, because it's more interesting to watch Maggie and Harry and Corbett and
exactly.
Ed.
So I get that.
Yeah. So he felt like that to me, just kind of like he's just there to be the camera guy, and like, I don't think we're really supposed to get a ton from him.
No.
But that's a very valid reading.
I just wish the stuff we hadn't got from him was
better.
Check my notes. The lines I have from him are just some really poor taste racist lines, and a reference that almost felt like a Hitler reference, and I was like, did I hear that right?
Yeah.
Please don't.
Yeah, I don't. I have no idea what the fuck that line was there for. And when I heard it, I like every time I hear it, I'm always like, the fuck is this doing in this episode? Like,
yeah, he just doesn't fit the rest of this episode. And I think that's why I wish he was more invisible. Because every time he talked, I was like, you're taking me out of the good stuff that's happening in this episode.
Yeah, that's a fair reading.
Okay. Like, what is the opposite of duty in this episode? Or just like, what do you think is the opposite of that?
Interesting.
Well, if we're going off of just gut reactions to that question, the first thing that came to mind was freedom.
Ooh.
Because you don't like duty means that you have something that you have to do, and freedom means that you don't have to do shit. You know, you're not obligated to anyone. You can just do whatever.
Yeah. I would say luxury.
Oh, okay.
That's a really interesting take.
To like just relax and enjoy the special things because you have the time to or something.
Oh,
so like
that's a really good interpretation.
Yeah, like Elayna, yours is about the like sense of like lack of mental obligation, and Noah, yours is about the like practical. I have the freedom to enjoy something without obligation.
Yeah.
I'm really curious then about I want to think about like luxury and freedom in this episode. This is super interesting to me.
Yeah, this is I did not know the conversation was going to go this way, but I'm enjoying it. I do need to take a second to think about that though.
I'm going to ask the hard questions today.
No, I love it because it's a good episode. It deserves the hard questions.
I mean, the Ghostfacers themselves kind of have a luxury of hiding behind the camera in a way, or performing in a way that's takes them out of the seriousness of the high stakes that they're actually in. They treat it as a show, an experiment.
Right. So they're trying to create content. They're not trying to save people.
Yeah.
Well, one thing, and this is kind of like a note both about duty and also about like the question that you're asking. I feel like Dean in particular, I think we can all agree, his number one duty that he's always felt he has is to take care of Sam.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like his entire operating system is based around that principle. And I think that we see this, like, to have an episode that's so meta and that's so outside of the brothers, but to see that even in that scenario, Dean is still 100% focused on Sam and taking care of Sam. And when Sam goes missing, he's still like, you see that duty come through.
Oh.
Like he cares so much about Sam. And I think it's really nice to see how they present that in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But
right, you can't escape that. Even if someone else is behind the camera, it's still very evident what Dean's priority is. But from that,
I was just going to say, but then you have on the flip side, you kind of have Sam, who is sort of operating from more of a place of freedom, because while he's worried about Dean, like he's operating in a really different space this
especially
episode.
At this point in the show, like he earlier in the season and still feels like he has a duty to save Dean the way Dean saved him.
Yeah.
But that's starting to look more and more futile. Like I'm thinking of after Mystery Spot. He doesn't know how to save Dean. And it's not the same, like Sam's duty to Dean is not the same as Dean's duty to Sam.
Yeah,
in the way that
it never has been.
About it, especially at this point in the show. Like later on in the show, that's going to shift a bit as they get older. But at this point in the show, that's still very much, Sam has more freedom. Dean in a lot of ways can't have a freedom from responsibility as long as he's responsible for Sam.
Yeah. And I think that like there's this weird, I mean, I can't speak to this because I'm not in Dean's head, but I feel like he has this worry about Sam for when he's gone. And for some reason, the notion that he could lose Sam this episode and that Sam could go before him, I think induces a really, really intense panic, because that's like, then what the fuck was it for? You know, why did he bother to sacrifice himself to save his brother if his brother was just going to fucking die because of a place that Dean wanted to go?
Ooh, that's an interesting piece too, is like the responsibility that he has is heightened because this was something he asked for.
Yeah, like they wouldn't be in this situation without him wanting to go there.
This was him chasing the luxury of a fun hunt.
Yeah, thinking that this was going to be a good time.
Like he was chasing something for himself in that fucked up way that a hunter can only think of a hunt as something for themselves.
Yeah.
But like he is, and it still backfires.
Yeah.
Damn.
He's only got 2 months left, so he's really got to fight for this duty until those 2 months are up, and then he can take a break.
Yeah, that's definitely the mindset he seems to be in, of like, I am riding, like he's not looking for a way out right now. He's
looking to live while he still can.
Yeah.
He's like, we got to get to the Grand Canyon of punting, which is apparently this place,
And now it's done. So hey, they busted the Grand Canyon in season 3. What are they gonna do now?
I just would like to close us out, even though it doesn't really technically have anything to do with duty. It doesn't fit anywhere else either. Honorary mention for the line, "In the salt, you idiot."
That line.
Make a circle and get inside.
They paused for the longest time. I sat there and I said, "Oh my god."
You're like, they're gonna misunderstand this shit.
I said, make a circle, and then he said, "With the salt."
Inside your duffel bag.
Oh my god.
I just had to have that line be mentioned. But now
the second episode in a row with just like the best lines, the writing of Giacomello, and like actually all 3, like the last 3 episodes have all just had such impeccably funny writing.
You know why though? Because that's when the I didn't realize this, but the writer's strike originally intended Mystery Spot to be the finale. So when they got what they deserved and needed, they like really came back hard with those next 3. They said, "You see what we can do?
Also,
look at this."
The nod to the writer's strike in the episode is the most. See, that's the funny thing about this particular episode. The whole episode is going meta. The whole thing. Yeah, like that's our segment we're going to be in now. Yeah, but like it's the whole thing is extraordinarily meta.
Is Supernatural like actually starting to flex its ability to tell stories in an interesting way?
Mm-hmm.
We've seen glimpses of that in the past, but
they really start to hit their stride with it when they get here.
Or they go, "Oh, we can play with a different perspective," and that will reveal a whole bunch of things about our characters that we can't usually explore.
Yeah, it's where season 3 is where they really like break form from their monster of the week kind of structure and really start to get into, okay, we've spent 2.5 seasons now giving you these monster of the week sort of things, but now you're not here for the monsters. You're here because you care about these characters. So let's give these characters the most compelling fucking shit to deal with and grow into that we can. And that's pretty much, it just takes, like, once you hit season 4, it's just hitting the ground running with that.
I mean, we couldn't ask for a better transition into the Going Meta section, which is the section where we are tracking lore, the Bechdel test, pop culture, and more.
Wonderful.
First up,
thank you.
We've got the Bechdel test. Do we pass?
Not in the slightest.
We have one named woman, and she gets some lines.
Ooh.
I again wish we got better characterization. I think her and Spruce are the 2 characters that get the worst characterization in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And hers is better than Spruce, but not by a lot.
No.
Yeah.
There to be a love interest.
Yeah.
I love it. And she's kind of, it sucks for her character because she's kind of like, I say this with, hand quotes, she's kind of owned in 2 different directions.
Mm-hmm.
Like she only exists to be Ed's adopted sister, which we put so much emphasis on. It's his adopted.
Very weird,
hurtful.
Which is just very hurtful and weird and
for
unnecessary.
no reason.
Yeah.
Like, don't talk about your siblings that way. Like,
no. It does not apply.
And it's like, I feel like they did that because they wanted to get like, okay, this is kind of a meaner way to look at it, but it's just how I see this episode. They start to put these characters in who are more diverse because they're like, oh, we want to get the brownie points to say that we had them, but they don't actually want to do the work of giving those characters a decent arc. And so it's kind of like they just sort of plugged her in there and they're like, oh yeah, let's have an Asian character. Oh, but she's adopted, and that's her whole note.
And we're gonna make a big joke about it because
it's
like,
not.
Guess what? Audiences are smarter than that. You could just say it's his sister. Like, we don't need you to spell out for us that she was adopted and then make it a thing to joke about.
Yeah, it's like you don't have to spell it out. You say it's your sister.
Like, not all families look identical to each other. That's not.
But like the thing with Supernatural is that they try so hard to like drive home these like American family, on the road sort of vibes, and it's like, so they don't embrace that idea that family can look different than the, again, I'm using hand quotes here, traditional family. Like, and it's gross. It's the one thing about this episode where I'm like, this is just really
Do better.
uncalled for. Oh, but in the note of her being quote unquote owned, like she's either the adopted sister or Harry's love interest. And the two of them literally get into a fist fight over her. And it's just like,
she doesn't get to be her own person.
like, is she a maiden in medieval Europe whose like father is arguing with, you know, the neighbor boy that he wants to sell her to? Like, that's what it fucking feels like. And I just hate it very much.
Yeah. And we're going to kind of come back to this because I have some theories and some interpretations of that love triangle, let's call it, but we'll come back to that. Next we're going to go to lore. So I was looking into the lore. We talked about the Ghostfacers effect a little bit already. This is another experience of like supernatural beings being seen through a camera. It's not quite the same as in Hollywood Babylon, but it's the same kind of
very similar.
Yeah, just fun. Again, gives us a different angle to see them.
A really raw angle. It was like, here you go. That's them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It very much, and the way that they like the costuming and stuff of the ghosts also very much reminded me of Hollywood Babylon in terms of just vibes.
Like of the production.
Yeah. And again, like in terms of lore pieces, this is another example of like spirits are found where their remains are. So even though these people, like they're not tied necessarily to the place they died, they're tied to their remains, and wherever those are is where the ghosts will show up. That's pretty consistent. Nothing really new. Noah, did you notice anything lore wise that you didn't already know from previous episodes?
Not really. It was, I mean, Death Echoes. I don't think that's been.
Oh yeah, Death Echoes. I don't think were mentioned.
Okay.
Prior to this.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of them before, but it seemed like just a fancy word for saying a ghost that keep reliving their. It seems like a term that they could use at some point, but
and they're just like non-vengeful ghosts in a lot of ways, like Death Echoes.
Yeah, I love the way that Dean's like, they might as well just be a scary movie, like.
Yeah, so that leads us into Lost Cannon Jar, because Death Echoes kind of are that. They're something that we don't come back to in the show. I think mainly because there isn't anything to come back to. The idea of ghosts just sort of reliving their deaths, but not actually being dangerous doesn't provide a lot of plot fodder. I kind of wish they had used it a little bit more, because I think it would be like emotional plot fodder definitely there. The Winchesters see a lot of people die. Them running into ghosts of people that they know, like there's some interesting possibilities that they don't ever utilize, unfortunately. So unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to get Death Echoes specifically referenced, even if we see things that might be kind of similar to them.
Yeah, I don't remember them ever being mentioned again.
Yeah, in the Lost Cannon Jar it goes.
Oh, where's my other piece of paper?
Well, we can now move forward into our pop culture section. One of our exciting, fun little references and whatnot.
Okay.
Did you all notice any that you enjoyed?
Aren't those assholes from Texas?
Well, okay, there we go. Right off the bat. Yeah.
Great. Another like funny again that the pop culture in this episode is very meta. Like that's a dig at Jared and Jensen.
Yeah.
Both growing up here in Texas.
Yeah.
Love it.
I noticed something this episode, and I didn't put it in the doc specifically because I wanted the shock factor, because I feel like you guys would have mentioned it if you had noticed it. So the part when they're looking at the missing persons reports, did you guys notice anything shifty about those?
I did not.
So the second one in the stack, when he pulls it off, and it's perfect because he's saying, as he's looking at him, he's like, these don't look legit. And Sam's like, they're definitely legit. The picture on one of them is Justin fucking Timberlake.
What?
Is he really?
Are you sure?
I swear to God.
That's hilarious.
If not, it is his stunt double or something, because please, look at it on the thing to prove that I'm not insane, and we can totally cut this part if I'm crazy. But I swear to God, it's Justin Timberlake on one of the missing persons files.
I love that.
That is very funny, and a very funny, again, very meta sort of pop culture reference.
Yeah. Because the missing persons reports that he's showing him are actually supposed to, in the canon of the show, be real ones. And so the fact that it was him,
Justin Timberlake is gone
missing in
supernatural.
Haunted.
Yeah, and they just keep coming back to JT,
R.I.P.
Which is such a good callback. Such a good callback.
Justin is quite the triple threat. So yeah, so that's my contribution to the pop culture section. I never noticed that until this morning when I was watching it, and I was like, is that? And I literally paused and went back and just froze on it for a little while to make sure I wasn't delusional, but I still might be. Who knows?
Hey, you never know.
Not specifically like a reference, but the line that Dean has where they're trying to get him to like open up and talk about things, and he starts to talk, and then he goes like, I'm not gonna whine about my bullshit problems in some fucking reality show. I'm gonna do my fucking job. It's just very so funny good. To me. It's just very, again, like him being very consciously aware of like, oh, I'm on a TV show.
Like, oh,
which is the best, because it's like, he's like, I'm not gonna,
I'm not gonna whine about my problems on a TV show.
It's like, Dean, you have no idea the number of times that people have watched you cry.
Well, also, the idea that like in this moment he knows there's a camera on him, but most of the time he doesn't.
Yeah.
But there clearly is, and we're getting all these hints that there is just deliciously meta.
Oh yeah.
This episode is so brilliant.
They did really well with this one. I'm very impressed.
Mm-hmm.
Not any other pop culture references that stuck out to me.
I feel like it's a good time to phase into Gaydar because we have a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, this is gonna be a fun time. This is our second canonically queer character. I believe it's only our second, at least in terms of like a named character.
Canonically.
Lily. Yes, canonically
we have
stated. Explicitly. Thank you. I appreciate this.
Thank you, Noah.
For clarifying, it's not our second queer character. It's just our second explicitly, verbally confirmed from the show.
Yeah.
And before we maybe get into the nuances of that, a big thumbs down to the CW and the writers for the fact that the second time in a row a queer character has not survived their one and only episode.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
Terrible representation.
Now that we've got that out of the way.
By the CW, but props to Dustin Milligan of Schitt's Creek fame for his phenomenal performance in this episode.
I was hoping that was going to get brought up.
Oh my God, he was great. I saw him on screen and I said, hey, he's so small.
You're so little. I don't even think he looks so, like, I remember watching Schitt's Creek when it came out and like looking at Dustin Milligan and being like, I know you from somewhere.
I was doing the same thing.
And then went, oh, I know you from, I remember saying this to my partner who is not, at that point had not seen any Supernatural, being like, I know him from somewhere. And he was like, I don't recognize him. So I like Googled it and then went, oh, it's fucking Supernatural. I went, I'm going to apologize now. I should just assume if you know it, if I know an actor and you don't know them, it's because they were in Supernatural.
Fair enough.
He's very good.
It's so great.
Okay, so I have a theory and I will say that theory now.
Do it. Hit us with it.
I think that there is canon evidence, good evidence that Harry is in love with Ed.
Yes.
And that is actually really significant to this episode playing out the way it does. That in a lot of ways we are getting Corbett. Corbett is our opening to get to see what's going on with Harry and Ed. Harry and Ed have this dynamic that is this partnership that's incredibly close. They spend all of their free time together. They spend all of their work time together.
Yeah.
And particularly and I think Maggie knows. And that's where a lot of, I think my theory kind of hinges on is I think Maggie knows that Harry is in love with Ed. I don't think Ed knows at this point.
Ed's the most
I don't think Harry knows.
Motherfucker. Oh my God.
And I don't even know that Harry realizes it, but the scene, I cannot read the scene where Harry catches Ed and Maggie kissing as anything other than like
like a jilted lover almost. Like,
yeah, it's jealous. He's jealous.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, not weird, but like it's different than they had advertised.
Yeah, and that it's not, I think it's a moment where Harry is starting to realize it's not just, he says my best friend and my best sister. And I think when I was
which just what a
sounds
sentence.
Odd.
It's a weird way to say it, but I think it's like interesting because he's reacting, like it's such a trope. And I think like what they maybe were originally trying to go for was the trope of like, you're dating my sister, you're my best friend and you're dating my sister. I don't know how I feel about that because I'm kind of protective of my sister, which is also kind of, often in shows ends up being kind of gross and possessive.
I've never understood that trope.
But here it doesn't read like that to me here.
No.
It just reads to me like Harry is like, you're getting close to Ed in a way that I can't.
Yet.
Yeah, or that I don't feel like I can, or like I don't feel like would be reciprocated, or I just feel like I don't understand why you get this and I don't, even if he doesn't realize what it is.
Yeah, this was the first time, like, because I've seen this episode many times over the years, but like I guess because I was watching it specifically to discuss it on a podcast called Queering Things, it just I never read Ed as having feelings back for Corbett before, but I feel like his confession hit a little different. It's like one of the many things that after Cass's confession will just always hit different. And like I think that it's very possible that your theory is true and that he does have those feelings. He doesn't know how to process any of what he's feeling, which honestly relatable as a queer person. Like before it's this weird existential feeling that you just can't put words to. And like, I think that is what we see Ed going through from both angles, in that he clearly cares about Harry in that way, but also when he realizes that Corbin felt that way about him, and he like has this moment of almost like awakening, it feels like, when he's like, we have to, the iconic line, you have to go be gay for that poor dead intern, which is just one of the best lines of the whole series.
Comes off as funny, but also as really heartfelt, of like,
honestly,
like, of like, you need to be able to put your own like things aside in this moment to show some genuine care for this person who really cared about you. And to your earlier point, Elayna, like the experience as a queer person of like being in love with a best friend and not realizing that's what it is just like so fucking relatable. Like the idea of, I just thought this person was really important to me as my best friend, and then having a realization days or months or years later, even after that friendship is over. Same, years for me, like years after friendships were over, I can look back at friendships and be like, oh, that was a crush. Oh, I was straight up in love with that person.
Yeah, that was one of my closest friends in college. I had that realization like maybe 3 years ago, and I was like, oh no, that explains so much.
And I think that's Harry and Ed, like however reciprocal it is. Like I think that's where they are. Like I think there's lots of canonical like evidences that point to that. And it's Corbett, in a lot of ways, it's Corbett's explicit crush that maybe allows both of them to see feelings that could be there.
Yeah. Well, and that speaks to, I think, overall, the importance of representation, because when you are a queer person and you don't know other queer people, you don't know how to process that because you literally do not yet have the language. And so for the end of this episode, finding out like, oh my God, Corbett had these feelings for me, you realize that like, it's like when people are like, oh, I don't know any gay people like that of. Like
you don't know any gay people that trust you.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have these people exist around you. And like, I always think it's funny when I see folks who are like, I've never met a trans person. And I'm like, that you know of, because most of them are in the closet for at least a good portion of their lives.
Yeah.
And so it's just, he has that, like I said, the best term I can think of to describe when Ed is, saying all that stuff to Corbett to try and wake him up. It's an awakening moment for him. And and he plays it, for such a goofy actor, he really plays that moment with such heart.
Genuine, heartfelt.
And I love that they didn't bring Sam and Dean into that scene at all. Like I love that they just let Ed and Harry figure it out on their own and go, oh, we might be able to actually help Corbett. And then it just became, again, like when you were talking about like duty, and like it wasn't about that at all. It wasn't about trying to solve the case or stop the bat. Like it was about just giving relief to their friend who they cared about. And I think I love also that when Ed goes, like he doesn't try and play up the gay. Like he doesn't go all like fluffy or like all.
No, it comes across as so genuine.
It's him talking.
Yeah, he doesn't have to reach for any like feelings he hasn't figured out.
No.
It's just their feelings he didn't figure out until about 10 seconds prior to having to say them out loud.
Yeah. When he realizes that how Corbett felt about him was love, he replays parts of that and compares it to how he feels about Harry. And he's like, oh, damn. Okay. So yeah, I do feel that. And so he can speak from the heart in that moment. And it's heart-wrenching, honestly.
It is. It's such a beautiful moment. Like the line, "You've always been the brave one. You make us brave." Like the idea that that's something that Harry says to Ed and goes, I see something. And I see that we're more than just these goofy, TV makers of, some silly little show. He's like, in this moment, we are bigger than that, braver than that. And and what we do for each other matters. And I think that's a really beautiful message that comes out of this episode of like being honest with your feelings and caring genuinely about how your feelings and your words can impact the people around you.
Yeah. I was just going to say that something meta that I noticed just as you were talking is that scene where he's saying all that stuff, about like, you're the one that makes us brave. If you look at that through a meta lens, it comes off as Harry is the audience and Ed is Sam and Dean. Like, I don't know about y'all, but like, I keep this freaking Dean Pop Funko on my desk because it makes me feel brave when I don't feel brave. And so it's like,
the storytelling,
that's like a meta angle that I never noticed, but that is making my heart really happy.
Yeah. The idea that these characters who are this, we've met them once before, but like really, they're really, really minor characters in Sam and Dean's actual life, but that they get to speak so powerfully about what the show is as a whole, like the themes of the show, these themes of like family and love and free will and saying what you feel. Those are like all integral to what Supernatural is. And these external characters get to come in and say it in a way that is powerful because they're not Sam and Dean.
With a different perspective.
I
like it.
Conversations like this are why I podcast. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I have so much affection for this episode, I think, because of this particular queer reading of it.
Yeah.
It gives us the most iconic line. I mean,
in the history of shows.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's heard it at some point.
Do you want to actually, no, I want to make one other point about one other quote that's just funny.
Yeah.
That was also one of those things where I was like, that's not a great person thing to say. Is when Harry says to Dean, he says, "Listen up, chisel chest," and it. I didn't notice that line other watches. It's very funny.
Yeah, absolutely. But okay, so we all know here we were thinking that we were teaching you, but all this time you were teaching us about heart, about dedication, and about how gay love can pierce through the veil of death and save the day. Iconic, absolutely. Chef's kiss.
Just perfection.
And where we're going to end our gaydar for the week, but we would love to hear.
Drop.
We would love to hear what you think of the Ghostfacers and of this particular interpretation. Send us your queer Ghostfacer theories, please. Thank you, and you're welcome.
We're literally begging.
Please,
hit the website, hit our socials. Let's do it.
Talk to us.
We want to talk about it. So now it's time for our episode mixtape, in which we all share a song that has either like vibes and or lyrics that made us think of the episode. So Abigail, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, so the song I'm going with is Brave by Sarah Bareilles. This is a song about saying what you want to say and like being honest about who you are. And Corbett is that kind of character. He's just this incredibly genuine character who is who he is and whose story gets kind of told in this episode. And I couldn't choose a song that was about, and if I'm not mistaken, that song was also written about by Sarah Bareilles about a friend who was coming out and who was, I believe.
I never knew that about that song.
I'm gonna go and look it up.
I accept that headcanon either way.
Yes, the singer was, so yes, I just went and looked it up so I could make sure I was fact checking myself. But yeah, the singer, like Sarah Bareilles, was inspired by a close friend who was dealing with the struggle of coming out. And so I just couldn't choose any other song but this for an episode that is this. So
I love that.
Yeah. Noah.
I chose Life Was Easier When I Only Cared About Me by Bad Sons, because that one just kind of feels a little fitting for this one. It's a bop, but it has a deep meaning, and so it hits.
This episode is that.
Yeah. A bop with deep meaning.
Go check it out.
So my episode mixtape is a song that is accurate to the time period, which is fun. It is What About Now by Daughtry.
Oh, I haven't heard Daughtry in so long.
Yeah, Daughtry is one of my all-time fave artists. I just love him so much. But that song in particular, the lyrics, I think, really strongly speak to elements of this episode. Particularly, like there's a line where it says, "From all the things that we are not saying, can we see beyond the scars and make it to the dawn?" And that just... if that's not the episode, I don't know what is. And yeah, it's just, and there's also a line in the song where it says love will find you, and that just makes my heart a little fuzzy.
That's lovely. Those songs are all going to be added to our season 3 episode mixtape. And as always, if you have a song that reminds you of an episode, feel free to send it our way. We'd love to add it to an episode.
Indeed.
So that brings us to our last thing of the week, and that is our blessings. Noah, who would you like to bless this
I would
week?
like to bless Corbett. He was the most genuine character in this episode, and he was the one who was there because of who he cared about, not because he cared about the fame and the power of it all, but he stuck with the people he cared for and cared really, really hard. He saved their lives in the end. So literally, if it wasn't for him, they'd all be dead, possibly Sam and Dean too. But
show would have ended in season 3 if it weren't for that poor dead gay intern.
Piercing through the veil of death.
Indeed.
Today.
Proud of him. Blessings to Corbett. Love him. Elayna, how about you?
My blessing for this week. Oh, sorry. My blessing for this week. Actually, because I figured that y'all were probably going to bless some of the other characters I wanted to. So I decided to go with Dean. Because again, just that's the scene in which Sam goes missing, and just everything that you can kind of like see going through Dean's head in just his expressions as he's like trying to find Sam was really gut-wrenching to me. And I think that this is kind of an episode that, you know, we're able to see it from this separate perspective, but we really see how much I think Dean is regretting the deal and the notion of leaving Sam behind, because just in that moment where he thinks that he's lost Sam, it's really heart-wrenching to watch. And so I just wish blessings for Dean, because I think he's going through it this episode, even though he tries to play it off with his bravado and his swearing that we never get enough of.
Nicely done.
Amen to that. I am going to bless Ed for the courage to show some emotional vulnerability, particularly to Corbett, also with Harry, for just reaching beyond just like a cursory or like a platitude. Like, he doesn't go to Corbett with platitudes. He goes with real, genuine feelings and real, genuine care. And that's hard to do when you're scared and hurting and you've just lost someone. He's able to like be vulnerable in that moment in a way that's incredibly powerful. And I want to bless him for that moment. I think it shows his depth as a character and as a person beyond the silly, goofy stuff we get in the rest of the episode. So my blessing for Ed. And that also kind of, I mean, that those same things kind of apply to Harry as well, honestly.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Well done. Well, that feels like it brings us to the end of the episode today. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you had a great time.
We did.
I know I did.
Yeah, we clearly had a phenomenal time. It's always a great time recording.
This was a blast. So make sure that you are subscribed to Saving People Queering Things wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can find links to our social media and how you can reach out to us through our website, queeringthingspodcast.com.
Be sure to ride along with us next week for season 3, episode 14, Long Distance Call, through the theme of heritage.
Thank you all so much for coming along for the ride, and we wish you a peaceful road until we meet again.